Rob, I'm telling you, I can't. Why I was in a coaching session and I'm on my knees and I'm praying them to pay themselves. Right? Is because of that one fact is you got to make the business do what you need it to do. Right? You're going to give it time. You're going to give it interest. You're going to give it time away from family. You're going to give it an unequaled amount of energy and talent and all of this other stuff. Right?
Mhm.
So the business has to inform you. And this is where it comes down to that philosophical switch.
Mhm.
Is I tell them, I says, look, looking at your spreadsheet is not about the numbers necessarily. It's about the information that the numbers tell you. This business podcast, the Two Business Guys Mastermind, uncovers for you secrets and share tips and tricks to entrepreneurship as they mastermind on how to have startup, operational, and overall business success so that you can go on to get better results. Enjoy. So, what did you just say, Rob?
I said, all right. So one of the things, and just to give the audience context, we're talking a little bit about best practices, right? And there's plenty of best practices in business. You can read Harvard Business Review, you can read Wall Street Journal, you
Yeah.
can read any business book in your local bookstore or your Audible or your Kindle or whatever. But the whole thing about it is it's not just knowing what to do, knowing the best practices. There's reasons why people aren't doing those best practices, and a lot of things don't really address that. And it's what we were talking about kind of offline is the niche that I really feel like my business fits in, and what I do with my business coaching is filling in that gap, because there's a reason why people aren't doing certain things. For example, a lot of entrepreneurs don't pay themselves, right? And Randy and I have coached hundreds of entrepreneurs, and it's a similar problem over and over and over again. They're not taking any money from the business; they're just pouring in. It feels like a hobby, and a very expensive hobby. It doesn't give them any of the emotional support or emotional reinforcement that says keep doing this, except that they like doing the thing. And a lot of times people will get up on stages and say, you need to pay yourself. People will get into classrooms and be like, you need to pay yourself. Put a line item on there for yourself. And the interesting thing is there's a reason why, especially beginning entrepreneurs, don't pay themselves. And I remember, now I want y'all to go with me here because it's a little bit of a story, but it'll make sense. I remember learning this when I was in law school. And when I was in law school, there was this pressure, right? I'm a first generation law student. I'm the first person in my family to go that level of school. And I'm the first person that I know that's been through law school. I've got friends that have been through law school, but they were first generation as well. So there's this psychological weight that's on your shoulders of trying to prove that you belong, prove that you can do the work, prove that it's that you're worthy, right? There's a little bit of imposter syndrome that goes into it and all the rest of that.
Mm-hmm.
Even though, right, I'm at a top 25 law school, I got a top 10% LSAT. Like I've already proven technically that I belong there, but in your mind, you haven't proven that you belong there till you get there, you do the work, and you do it, right? And my first year while I was there, I'm studying, I'm in the library, I'm doing all the things that I think I'm supposed to do to show that I'm a good student. And I get decent grades, but not great grades. I didn't make Dean's List that first semester. Um, I was basically a B plus away from Dean's List. Um, and I remember going to discuss my test with a professor, and it was the way law school is. The tests work. It's basically, can you spot as many issues as possible and analyze as many issues as possible from all the stuff that you've downloaded through the 16 weeks that you've been in school. And it's weighted grade, so there's only so many A's, so many B's, so many C's, etc. And so I go in, and my grade is in the middle of A minus and B plus land. So the cutoff for B plus, and I don't remember the exact numbers. Let's say the exact numbers were, you know, 160 points was a B plus, 170 points was a A minus, and I had 100 and I had 165. And I'm sitting there, and there's a couple of places where I believe the professor has marked my paper the wrong way. So I'm arguing my case, and she's like, well, yeah, I guess I could, but I still can't give you an A minus because we've reached the cap of A minuses. So B plus is all I can give you. And and in that moment, I realized like there's a lot of stuff going on in the background It has nothing to do with how hard I study, how hard I work, all the rest of that type of stuff, because I earned something higher than a B plus, but she couldn't give me anything higher than a B plus, right?
Mm.
And so I just had to settle for that. So that's one of the things that I learned the hard way, doing the work and kind of getting behind it. Now, that's not to say that she was bad or anything, but that's stuff that goes on. Now, what I learned shortly thereafter is that I started watching some of my friends who had brothers, sisters, fathers, mothers, uncles, etc., that were lawyers that had been through law school. And I started watching how they studied and the things that they did. Because in every class you could bring in, you know, some classes were even open book tests. Some classes where you could bring in two sheets of paper that had information on it. And I started looking at the way that I brought in my tools to the test and the way they brought in their tools to the test. And I started seeing certain things. The kids that had come from people who had been to law school before, the stuff that they brought in was directly designed to do well on the test. They understood the formula for doing well on the test, and they got better grades, even though I knew they weren't necessarily the smartest kids in our class. And
Mm.
again, this is in a group of people that are all some of the smartest people in the country, but you
Mhm.
could tell the differences and you could tell the people who were really intelligent, quick on their feet, and able to assess things. And I started looking at that and I started seeing it. And so I started learning about the systems that existed, because taking a law school exam, there's certain points that are given for certain things that if you're a new person, you don't understand the game the same way as people who have been taught the game before.
Mhm.
So I learned all that, started changing how I did things and how I ran things. I wind up making Dean's List. I wind up graduating with honors, all the rest of that, because I learned how the game was played. And so I started doing things like the people who were vets in the game and who were taught from vets in the game, even though we were all first-time law students. And so in business, one of the things that I learned is most of the people who are teaching the best practices, have elevated to the level where their businesses are making money. They're doing this, right? They're teaching entrepreneurship. They've done this before. And a lot of them have had mentors or have learned the game from people. And so they understand the importance of paying yourself, but they forget how to explain how they overcame the barrier of
Mhm.
why you have to pay yourself and why it's acceptable and how to do it. When I was in law school, what I felt like I needed to do was work hard to prove that I belong. And then I saw a group over here that was like, no, we're not going to work hard. We already here. We're going to work smart to get the grades that we need to get, because that's what's important. I don't need to prove to nobody that I belong here. I need to make sure that I get what I came here for.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a psychological shift that has to happen. And what happens is with those people, they never felt inferior because they were around people. They had people that showed them what belonging meant. They knew that they belonged, whereas there's a lot of people that didn't know they belonged. And so for beginning entrepreneurs, a lot of the fight is, until my business is making really good money, I can't take money out of the business, because here's the funny thing. There's conflicting information from those at the top. There's a lot of people at the top that will say, you don't deserve to take money from your business until you need to make the business work and make sure that it's a good enterprise. And I didn't take money out of my business until I made 10 million, and all these types of stories that are out there. And then you have these other conflicting stories that are saying you got to pay yourself. And the reality is, this is why I like Profit First, Mike Michaelowicz. We've talked about it a lot.
Mhm.
What he
Mhm.
walks you through is, you might not have enough money to pay yourself for the job you're doing, as far as the business and all the rest of that. But you can decide whether your business is profitable from the beginning, because you
And
say,
that's it.
here is the profit, that on every dollar that I make, I will have this much profit, and I will figure out how to make that profit work. It's just like tithing. If you have a dollar, you have 10 cents to give away.
Mm.
It's not a question of, do you not have the money? Yes, you have the money. The question is, can you live in such a way that you maintain that 10 cents to give away? And part of that is, if you give away the 10 cents before you ever spend any of the other money in that dollar, then you will live off of 90 cents easily. Same thing with profit. You have to understand that you have to pay yourself first a percentage of profit. It can be 1%. It's learning the discipline of, every dollar that comes in is not available for running this business. There is a portion of this money that has to come to me as a reward for having run this business,
Man,
because
I
that dollar wouldn't be here if I hadn't done what I already did.
Rob, I'm telling you, I can't. Why I was in a coaching session and I'm on my knees and I'm praying them to pay themselves. Right, is because of that one fact is you got to make the business do what you need it to do. Right, you're going to give it time, you're going to give it interest, you're going to give it time away from family, you're going to give it an unequaled amount of energy and talent and all of this other stuff, right? So the business has to inform you. And this is where it comes down to that philosophical switch.
Mhm.
Is I tell them, I says, look, looking at your spreadsheet is not about the numbers necessarily. It's about the information that the numbers tell you.
Yeah.
What is the information in your business telling you when you
Mhm.
don't pay yourself and it's just making break even or whatever, right? I
Mhm.
says, now if break even isn't including a nice amount for yourself, then the business is
Mhm.
informing you maybe you don't have, and this is how I just had to put it, right? I said, it's informing you I got the wrong market. It's informing
Exactly.
you I got bad marketing. It's
Yeah.
informing you nobody wants my product or
Right.
it's informing you I need to sell differently. So the
Right.
information
Yeah. It's
is
definitely
what you're
telling you
trying to get.
information, and I love that point. Like that point you just made. It's not what the numbers say as much, or it's not what the numbers are as much as what they're telling you about your business. And I think that the big key though is for so many business owners, they misread the data, right? So, for example, I work with with leaders in industry from billion-dollar corporations all the way down to entrepreneurs. And when I'm working with middle management and senior management in these larger corporations, a lot of times they'll go get data, but then they'll read the data in the most negative light, right? So, for example, I was doing this project and we were looking at hybrid work is the thing, and everybody's trying to figure out how to get back to the office or stay out and all the rest of the type of stuff. So one of the participants went and did a study, and they showed at the beginning of the study that I think it was like 65 or 70% of people were either not liking coming back to work or completely against not coming back to work,
Yeah.
right? And with the bulk of them being kind of in the middle, where it's like, I really don't like it, but it's not horrible, right? So there's like maybe 65% was here, and then another 10% was at hate it, and another 3% was at will never come back to work. That's the thing. So they do this work, and they implement an experiment where they try to give people more flexibility about how they come back into the office. So you don't got to be in the office 8 hours if you did work at home, et cetera, but you do need to be in the office. And what they saw was more people started hating it, but overall, less people were on that side of the ledger. So more people in total went from not liking it or being ambivalent to it to liking it. But because they saw some people went from not liking it or being ambivalent to hating it, they were reading the data as if it was a bad thing, as if their experiment didn't work. And I was like, this is what so many people do. They look at the data, they don't know what the data is telling them. And a lot of entrepreneurs will look at the data and say, you know, I'm paying myself 1% and I'm barely able to make it. And they'll look at that and say, my business isn't working.
Uh-huh.
Problem with that concept is this: they're looking at something and having just created an entity that is making money and is able to pay them a little bit of extra money. Now,
Uh-huh.
it may not be the amount of money that you want right now, but the thing that is to be celebrated is you were able to create something that's able to pay you and still sustain itself. 34% of businesses fail every year because of financial insolvency. 98% of small businesses fail within the first 5 years, many of them because of financial insolvency. If you're able to run your business and only pay yourself a 1% profit, you're a business that can get better and do so over time sustainably
Uh-huh.
because of the fact that you're able to pay yourself some money. Now, play that the other way. If you're a business that makes $1 million, but you never are able to pay yourself, how long can you keep working for free?
Yeah. Yeah. That what a big question. And I think, entrepreneurs, as you're listening to this, as we're masterminding on this, is coming out of some pain that we may be having in talking with other entrepreneurs. You know,
Mm-hmm.
some of it could be a belief system. Some of it could be that you're just wrapped up in activity and you're just not taking a look at what the business is informing you of. So we're
Mm-hmm.
suggesting to you in the work that Rob and I do, whether we're going to be, working for people or whatever it is, we just says, what is it telling you? Now, off camera, Rob was talking about how he said, look, I could do it for you. But a lot of business owners don't want to bring the information. They don't want to bring all the right stuff so we can review the business
Mm-hmm.
and be honest
Yeah.
with you. Now, I've
Yeah.
had
It's a lot of people that don't want to look at the reality.
that's it. They don't want to see, right?
Right.
That the businesses, it needs different things, and that different thing could, of course, be you. But
And a lot of that
that's
is
another
because
story.
of that fear of, right, again, because I feel like they misread it. They read it as for beginning entrepreneurs, right? And here's the thing, not even beginning entrepreneurs. Whenever you're stepping to the next level of whatever you're doing, right? I ran 3 businesses before I ran this business, and none of those businesses were 6-figure businesses. All those businesses were 5-figure, low 5-figure when I first started, high 5-figure a year businesses, right? They were all things that I did on the side. I always had a job where I was making money as well.
Mhm.
And that was like these were hobbies that also made significant money when I look back at them. So when I stepped into the arena trying to build a business from scratch that was actually going to make enough money to pay me, there was all types of imposter syndrome and struggles. And am I good enough? Can I do this? Right now, if you look at my resume, if you look at my credentials, if you look at my history, there's no question. Nobody else wondered whether I could do it except me. But nonetheless, that question was very strong in my mind. And I know for a lot of business owners, that question looms strong in your mind. Even now, as I run a multi 6-figure business and I'm trying to go to a 7-figure business, there's questions about that next level that I'm like, am I ready for that? Can I do that? Do I have this? Even though there are people that have run 9-figure businesses that I have as mentors that are like, yes, you're ready. Yes, you have it. Yes, but there's still those questions that happen. And this goes back to that point where a lot of times for you business owners that are out there, I want to speak right now to why you're not doing what you know you should be doing.
Mm.
Because it's really important for you to not beat yourself up. Maya Angelou has this quote, and I love it. It says, give yourself grace for what you didn't know when you didn't know it, right? Give yourself grace for not knowing. When you know better, do better. Understand that along this journey, you're going to go through one of my mentors, Darren Hardy, calls it an entrepreneurial roller coaster, right? These ups and downs, these highs and lows. And the funny thing about it is, as you go up, you're still going up and down. And you have to be able to withstand that by reinforcing that you already are good enough. How do you know that you're good enough? You've gotten to where you are right now. If you weren't good enough, you wouldn't have made it this far,
Mm.
right? Especially those of you all that have had your business for a year, 2 years, 3 years, right? You're in the top 20% of business people that ever start a business. If you can make it past 3 years, think about this, right? 44% of businesses fail in their first year, 64% of businesses fail in their second year, right? And then it goes slowly up to 98% over the next 3 years.
Mhm. Mhm.
If you made it past 3 years and you've been running your business, you've been continuing this race, it's not a question of if you can get there. It's a question of will you sustain it long enough so that you can get there.
Yeah,
Now,
I love that.
in that, in that space, the other thing I want to tell you is understand that you're going to have to learn how to do it, which means you're going to have to be the novice. You're not going to be the expert. You're going to have to go to the conferences. You're going to have to go and find a mentor. You're going to have to get coaching. You're going to need all of that other stuff because the reason you're not getting to where you need to get is not because you're not capable, right?
I
Michael
lo-
Jordan was the best player in the NBA from the second year he was in the league. Everybody knew he was that dude until he had the proper coaching so that he could work well with the team that he had. He wasn't that dude. And
that's
now,
interesting.
once he got the proper coaching, he's been that dude for all time.
Yeah, man. I just watched the movie, um, the Ben Affleck
Air.
movie. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's been out a minute, but
Mhm.
what something that you said I want to circle back to,
Mhm.
and it is something that I had a really heart to heart conversation with somebody that I care about, and it was this is what you said. You says, why are you not doing what you know to do right now?
Mhm.
And this is something that one of the topics, y'all, that we wanted to talk about was, or at least it was something we were bantering about. It's like, one was, should you rethink everything, blow up your business model, right? And create
Mhm.
whether it's a personal business plan. So we just kind of chose to
Mhm.
go around
Mhm.
this. But Rob, I want to address that a little bit, add a little
Mhm.
commentary to that.
Mhm.
Why are you not doing what you know to do? Now, the one
Mhm.
of the real big reasons why when we're showing the entrepreneurs the spreadsheet is that it tells them what they have to do. I
Yep.
mean, period. I says, I don't care. I begged them, put a number in there for your salary and let the business inform you. The business will
Yes.
tell you, hey, you need to sell, 18 of these. It'll
Mhm.
say, if you only work, and this particular spreadsheet was like, the guy was working 10 days a month. I was like, now, if you want to work 10 days a month, then here's the number.
Right.
It
Here's what you got to
informs
do
you.
to
But
earn that.
then I'm asking this question,
Mhm.
of entrepreneurs, can you do this? A,
Mhm.
yes, typically, yes. Will you do this?
The second
Now,
one.
will you sell?
Mhm.
Will you make the phone calls? Will you do the marketing? So it keeps coming back to, why are you not doing what you know to do in your business? Now, here
Mhm.
was the personal conversation that I had to have with someone that I really, really care about. Y'all track this, y'all. So I had to say to him, they're getting ready to shift, they're pivoting.
Mhm.
And I asked, have you given the business you're pivoting away from all that it deserves? In other words, why didn't you do what you knew to do that would grow
Mhm.
it, right? Because the
Mhm.
numbers were pretty clear, right? We went over
Yep.
the numbers. It was like, okay, I just need to sell this amount. And the math was really simple. Hey,
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
need to sell 1,000 subscriptions for X amount of dollars in X amount of time to have a nice, 6-figure payday. Let's say it was 100 grand. I
Mhm.
says, now, with this 100 grand, in fact, you got to pay taxes. I said, would that be okay? Yeah, that'd be fine. I said, so all you have to sell is a
Thousands, right?
thousand subscriptions at
Which is
this
80 a
amount,
month.
right? I says, a this month a month, or $100 a year, whatever it is. I says, you will then have. I says, but the question becomes, why aren't you concentrating all your efforts? So now here was the pivot. They want to pivot to another business that ain't making money. So I simply asked, I says, do you worry at all about going from one business that's not making money because you won't do the work to another business
That won't make
that's
money
not
because you
making
won't do the
money,
work.
that has not demonstrated, that's harder in my estimation,
Mhm.
right? I said, now this one could pay you because it has all the right elements. It has a good hook. It has a good value proposition. It's in the right time of what's
Mhm.
happening out there with entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs especially, right? And it says
Mhm. Mhm.
it is waiting on you to give it what it needs, and that's time and that's attention. But
Mhm.
yet, because it hasn't, and this is something that you taught me, Rob, that says, well, why is it that you really want to leave something? Is it because it's not paying you? Because if it was paying you, and you like to do this, and I've heard you do it to me, he says, well, if it was paying you X, would you stay? And you, well, yeah. Well, then go get it to pay you X.
Exactly. Fix the problem.
And especially if the math is right there in front of you, if you've got all the elements that it could work, it just comes back to, why are you not doing what you need, what you
Exactly.
know to,
Exactly.
not what you guess, what you
Right.
know to do. What does that look like, Rob?
Mhm.
Phone
Mhm.
calls. What does that look like? Maybe some
Mhm.
outbound marketing, because she's got great back end products, right?
Mhm.
That once they're
Mhm.
in, and I says, and you got a pretty rabid fan base of the folks that are in there now. They love you.
Mhm.
All
Exactly.
right. So
Yeah.
now
No.
now
And so in that space, I think it's that question. It's so robust of a question, even though it seems simple. It's, why are you not doing the stuff you know you need to do? There's a lot of different reasons, right? Part of it we talked about imposter syndrome. I don't believe that I'm worthy of doing the stuff that I need to do.
Yeah.
Even though I know I need to do it, I don't believe I'm worthy. Or I don't have that skill set, right? I just came back from a business master class with one of my mentors, and I've got, 80 pages of notes, and I'm going through, and it's going to
Of
turn
course
into,
you do.
a ton, right? It's going to turn into a ton of note cards and all types of stuff that we're going to be doing in my business. But one of the things that I looked at, and this is one of the things, for my business, built a multiple six-figure business. We're on pace to be doing $1 million in the next 2 years. Like, I know there's certain things that I'm really good at. There's certain things that I'm competent at, and there's certain things I don't like, but I can do if I force myself to do them. One of those things that I'm not really good at, I'm competent enough at, but I'm not really good at. And what I want is world-class service for my business is nurturing, right? And so one of the things I looked back and I looked at my team. So for example, on my team, I have a chief talent officer who is amazing at nurturing. She's great at
Okay,
figuring
so
out the
she's your
right gifts.
nurturer.
Right. But she's our internal nurturer. So for our team, she finds the right birthday gifts, finds the right employee appreciation gifts. She just has a knack for that, and she loves doing it. It lights her up. She's all excited and giddy when she's doing doing the presents and everything, and waiting for people to get them. And like that it just it shines her light. Right. That is not my strong suit. Never has been. Like, my brothers and sisters used to get mad at me because I would buy books for Christmas and for their birthdays, right? I was always like, hey,
Read
you need
something.
to learn, right? Read something. Here's a book that I read. Here's a book that I learned. Here's something that'll help you with stuff that you're telling me that's bothering you. For me, that was an amazing gift, right? You told me you had this problem. I went and got you the solution, right? That's kind of how I work. That's why I have a business with the way I do business. Some people value it. Family, not so much, right? And so I realized at an early age that gifting wasn't my specialty,
Mhm.
right? And part of running a business is that you've got to keep the fires going with those people that you have served that had a great experience with you, but weren't necessarily ready to buy right then or weren't necessarily ready to do something. And that's something that I have always been not great at, especially compared to how I am in person. So I was talking with my team the other day, and one of the things that happens is I'll do an event, I'll speak, I'll do a coaching, I'll do whatever, and people will leave on fire. They will leave excited, amazed. I can call them a year later and they'll be excited to pick up my call and talk to me. That's not the problem. The problem is I'll have to rekindle the fire if they're going to buy anything, if they're going to do anything as a customer other
Mhm.
than just as a fan. If
Mhm.
they're going to refer, if they're going to do whatever, I got to do all of that work again when I call them a year later or 6 months later. And that's not really good business, even though it's fine in the world of relationship building, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so what I realized was, instead of me trying to become the guy that is better at that, which is going to take me a long time because there's a lot of blind spots and things that I just don't get, that don't compute in my mind that way.
Mhm.
One of the books that you and I really like, that me and my team are studying right now,
Who,
is
not
called
how.
Who, Not How.
Oh my
And I
gosh.
literally
I talk to people about that all the time.
exactly, right. And I'm in the session and I'm listening to it. And immediately I'm like, I need a client care coordinator. I need to go find somebody just like my talent development officer who loves to do the nurturing, who just loves to be in relationship with people and to call people out of the blue and say, hey, how you doing? And all the rest of that. Because we have 1,000 people that this person can be stuck with all year, just building relationships and keeping the fire stoked. And they would be in heaven doing their job,
Sure.
and we would gain that that strength, right? We would gain that critical advantage in the marketplace. And I don't need to be the one, I don't have to get good at it. Now, in the interim, am I
Find
going
your
to have to
who.
start doing a little bit better at it so that I can build the system for the who and all the rest of that type of stuff? Yes. But the thing that so many entrepreneurs, and even I used to struggle with, I struggled with this a lot when I first started the business, was I should be doing everything. I'm just not willing to work hard enough. That's why I'm not doing it. It's like, no. Again, remember the lesson from law school: work smarter, not harder.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's not a question of whether you can work hard enough. You're at an elite school. It's not a question of whether you can work hard enough. You're working a full-time job and running a business. It's not a
Yeah.
question of whether you are capable of doing the work. You had to do all of the work to get the business off the ground. That's what
Yeah.
stops most of the people that try to start a business. So get out of the mindset of Am I good enough? Do I work hard enough? Am I just being lazy? No, you're not being lazy. If you're being lazy, you wouldn't be doing the business at all. But if you are doing the business, the question you have to ask yourself is, what is the premium that you get for being the hardest worker?
That's a good one. What do I get for this work?
Are you making any extra money because you work harder than the people that's making more money than you?
Mm. So it's about payoff then.
It's about ROI, exactly.
Right? I mean, return on your time, return on your interest, return on are you building a skill? I mean, man, I tell you, there's something, and this I think entrepreneurs, this hits you at various stages. You'll be like, man, why am I doing all this work? Right? Whether it's YouTube channels, and I've had a couple, right? And you abandon them because it's like this dang thing ain't making, but it taught you something. So
right.
I think it almost goes back to the, are you looking at the data right? Right. So if you start saying, well, it didn't bring me money, but it brought me skill that could bring me money. Oh, I hadn't thought about that because I'd never looked at that.
Exactly.
I looked at these other factors.
Right.
Did it
Yeah,
bring
it's a
me
lot of introspection.
that realization that I need who's, and now I've added an extra one to this, Rob, just like you gave me yesterday, revenue preparation activities. Oh my gosh, I've been already just like telling people, I says, now there's revenue generating, but then there's revenue preparation activities too, RPA. Remember these, right? I got to know that the activities that you're doing is doing one of those things, otherwise we're wasting time.
Exactly.
Right. So, and this additive to the who, not how, becomes the who or what. Now, as a software guy that loves software and I see the leverageability of software, I'm constantly doing that. I'm saying what? Now, I got a lot of software that is looking at me saying, hey, bro, I'll go out and make you all kinds of money, but you got to do the thing that gets you there. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to implement me, whether it's from ads, all these different things. Right. And if you say to yourself, again, I'm wearing a whole bunch of hats. I'm not even paying myself for the hats. It's something that Care said, and you had mentioned this too, I think, that Care Allen is who I'm talking about, another entrepreneur I work with. And she talked about this a lot. She says, when she started her business, she says, I would pay myself for the activity, the hat, and the words. She said, I would at least put it on the books. Okay, I'm going to be doing the marketing. What would I pay a marketer? Boom. Right. And this is something you hammer in a lot. If I'm going to do an activity, we then have to put a value to it. Right.
Exactly.
And then
as if somebody else was doing it for me.
Exactly. So you at least see the compensation for it. A, you make the business now pay you for it. B, because you're going to burn out if you're doing them all. And then when you decide to replace yourself, the business has already felt the stress or they've seen where it goes. That right there was gold information, especially for you out there starting stuff. You're doing it all. What's the value of that? Rob, you say this all the time.
Yeah.
That's data. What's the value of this activity? Otherwise, when you
what does it do for your business?
And we can close with this, man. I gotta get to some coaching here, but here's something that we had an entrepreneur, and I'm trying to remember the exacts on this one. Oh, but it was like they weren't looking at the business the right way, right? They were looking at the business from a totally emotional way, and the emotions was wearing them out. And we had to have them to literally step back and says, okay. And here's was the emotion. This business isn't making me any money. And I says, it's because of the way it was built. Right? Now, watch this, Rob. Yep. This is the part, man, that I had to drill down on. I says, this business was created for you and your family. But you are trying to now have a business to pay you, and you and your family ain't even working in it. In other words, the revenue is being used for other people. So you it's not sustaining itself and giving, it's barely breaking even. But if you were in the business, now this is the key part, right? So in essence, you basically built a business that gave you and your family a job.
Exactly.
You, your wife, your kids, right? Because they could work in the business. this is, and it and I think he's
Hmm.
still kind of ruminating on that, but it's
Yeah, it's
clear
a
to
hard
me
it's a hard
looking
truth.
in on it.
It's a
It's a
hard
hard
truth to
truth.
take,
It was a
right?
lifestyle business built for you.
Robert Kiyosaki talks about this in Cash Flow Quadrant. He talks about, there's four different quadrants of people. You got your employees, they go work for somebody else that created a job. The nice living, right? Airline pilots are employees,
Gerber
different
talks about
people.
that too, doesn't he?
Right. Yep. And engineers are employees. Like you can make a lot of money being an employee. Chefs are employees a lot of times, right? Um, Executive chefs, professional chefs, all the rest of it. So you've got employees. Then you've got small business owners. These are the people that are running LLCs, running S corps, run 1099 businesses where they have a very decent job. They have the flexibility of working when they want to work. They have their own clients. They created a job for themselves. Perfectly fine. Lawyers, dentists, doctors, right? Architects,
Mm-hmm.
anybody that's got a firm
Mm-hmm.
generally is a small business, a aka they created a job for themselves to do, right? Then there is the quadrant of big business. And the distinction there, and I love it because like even for me, I'm in that transition now of taking a business that I built that's a small business and trying to turn it into a big business. And we've got some really cool things on the horizon right now that I think are going to really, really be awesome. But in a big business, what you have is a system that in that system, you create jobs for other people. And because you create a system that allows those other people to work so well together, that business can pay you money for having created the system and for running the system.
Mm.
And it pays you as an owner. And if you're running it as a CEO, it pays you as a job. It gives you two checks instead of one. If you're not running it as a CEO and you're just as an owner, it gives you a check for not doing anything other than putting the team together and putting the system together. Think Robert Kraft of the New England Patriots. He doesn't coach Nam down. He doesn't decide on any personnel. He shows up, watches the game, talks to the coaches, talks to the people, says, "Hey, good job," does it, and then goes off about his business, doing the business that made him the money so he could buy the team.
Mm.
Right now, big business. The beauty of big business is you can go away from a big business, leave it in charge of the people who are running it, and come back, and it may have made you more money because the system works. It's not dependent upon you. You don't have a job. It pays you actually not because of what you do, but because of what you did. And then there's another quadrant, which is the investor quadrant, which is exactly that. Again, when you invest in things, they pay you for what you did, not
Mm-hmm.
for what you're doing. When you put money in the stock market, when you put money in in real estate and all the rest of that type of stuff, you do one round of buying the home and doing all the rest of that. You put all the people in place to run it, and then you get what Randy likes to call mailbox money, right?
Mailbox money.
Exactly, right? And so you get paid for what you did over and over and over again. It's difficult to get to those levels because so many people are used to trading time for money. So they're used to getting paid for what I'm doing. It takes a paradigm shift to look at, can I do something that's so valuable that people will continue paying me for it long after
Yeah.
I've done
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah.
We've both written plenty of books years ago that people are still paying me money for, having done the writing of the book. Randy's got like 9 books. He's making mailbox money all the time because we did that work. We did the research. We did the looking. We did the putting the ideas together. We did the publishing. We did all the rest of that. And now, years later, I think my last book I published in 2020, and people are still paying me for that work that I did 3 years ago.
Yeah. It's it's the best business. Let's not, I love when I was watching that movie Air and how his mom asked for a piece and Sonny was like, no, we can't do it. And we didn't, nobody has done that. Nobody is doing that. Nobody, we can't do it. We can't do it. And then it got done. Right. And
Yeah.
then on the screen afterwards, after the movie, it said that Michael Jordan makes $400 million from that one decision.
Yep.
$400 million a year, right?
Yes.
Because if his shoe line, if the Air Jordan line makes 4 billion, And you can kind of do the math, y'all, right? Now, I don't know about you, but that sounds like a good paycheck. All
Exactly.
right. Uh, just don't go and mess it up, right? By messing up your name, smacking somebody or something like that,
And think
right?
about it like this. Michael Jordan hasn't played basketball in 20 years.
You get a part of the business. What a great business model. Everybody, that's it for today. Rob, I thank you coming
Always a
on
pleasure,
and
brother.
sharing the gems with us, man. We've got look out for some of the things that we've got coming out. We've got some automated webinars that I'm literally putting together right now from some of our content, Rob. I'll share that with you when I get it all together. I was going to make it a
Yeah, yeah.
surprise, but this is where we're at. So
I
thanks
love it.
again, and we will talk again soon.